Ready when you are.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call the April 24th, 2024 Southampton Town Public Hearing to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Chair LaFaro.
Present.
Vice Chair Finity.
Present.
Secretary is here. Board Member Neely.
Present.
Board Member Fulham.
Present.
Board Member Glazer.
Present.
Board Member Mutu is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Just let me give you some safety procedures in case of an emergency. There are two doors out of this room, going down the stairs, out the front door. The first hearing tonight, David Goodman, we didn't have sufficient notice, and so we can't open the hearing. So that will be rescheduled, if anyone is here for that. We'll move right into 2 trees. It was held open at the last public hearing, so there's no need to read it into the record. So we'll just go right through and call Karen Pape.
Hi, I'm Karen Pape Murphy. I'm the attorney for the owners of Two Trees Farm, Hayground Road Development LLC, and I just briefly want to remind you what our application is about. We are proposing 2 new sand rings, and then we're restoring a ring that was partially built next to the indoor to grass. We're increasing the number of horses from 89 to 100, and that's based on the town's system of calculating the number of horses. The original approval had the manure just piled up next to the indoor ring, and that wasn't exactly, times have changed, and now as other horse farms, we're putting them in 4 manure storage containers where they get removed on a consistent basis and they don't leach into the ground. And finally, at the southern end of the property, we are putting a farm gate because it's right in between the hedges next to the road to protect horses and not have anyone escape. So that's what we're here for. And now I'm going to give the speaker just quickly to Nika Strunk, who is the other counsel for this.
Hey, good evening. Nika Strunk, 37 Windmill Lane, Southampton, New York, for the applicant. I wanted to just bring something to the board's attention quickly that I have communicated to your attorney, Christine Scalera, and I have a letter that explains it, but it has to do with the number of horses and with the law applicable to special exception applications. And the research that I've done shows that the New York Court of Appeals has held that the inclusion in the code of a use as a special exception use, which is what we have here, the horse farm is a special exception use, and this is a special exception application. Putting this use as a special exception use in this district is, quote, tantamount to a legislative finding that the permitted use is in harmony with the general zoning plan and will not adversely affect the neighborhood. And so the Court of Appeals has also said, while the board still retains some discretion to evaluate each application for a special use permit to determine whether applicable criteria have been met and to make common sense judgments in deciding whether a particular application should be granted, such determination must be supported by substantial evidence. Now, the law also says that if there is compliance with the statutory the statutory conditions for the special exception use, then, quote, the issuance of a special permit is a duty which must be exercised. And I have additional authority on this. I'm going to hand this up. I have copies for everyone. But the special exception criteria for horse farms are specifically listed in the town code. And in section 331-162.1b, one of those criteria states, there shall be a minimum of 30,000 square foot of open land area for each horse kept, raised, or stabled on parcels of up to 15 acres, and for any parcel of over 15 acres, there shall be a minimum of 20,000 square feet of open space for each horse kept on the portion of the land exceeding 15 acres. Such open land area shall be exclusive of any area occupied by buildings and/or structures. So this application for 107 horses complies with that standard, and it's our submission that, for that reason, it is within the criteria that the town board legislatively determined made this an appropriate use in this district. And so that's all I'd like to say. If there's any comments or questions, I'm happy to discuss it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to hand up the original and 10 copies. Okay, if I give it to you.
You can give it to me, Nika.
Herb Sample?
Hello,
Hello.
Herb Sample, 22 Cove Road, town of Southampton. I'm happy to say I've seen you guys so often on TV. It's kind of like a thrill to be here. So, but I'm here to speak on the Two Trees application. I've known Roman and Brian for 20 years. I know them as great sports people. Brian having reached the very highest levels of international competition. And also business people. They are respected by everyone, and they've always been totally committed to their community wherever they've operated. As myself, a member of the East End equestrian community for 20 years, I've had the privilege of boarding in 3 different barns, including Two Trees. And I would like to see them thrive. I think it's an important part of both the culture and the history of the East End. I'd like to see more people riding. I'd like to see more therapy riding programs, which have been demonstrated conclusively to have tremendous benefits for children with disabilities, but also for veterans with PTSD. And the results have been nothing short of miraculous. And then also the open space component of having farms zoned here, because it's part of, for me, what makes the East End such a unique place. And I think we all really enjoy having those vistas and having the open space as a part of our landscape. But it's also true that as businesses, they need to thrive. And for that, I think they need two things at the minimum. One, they need a supportive environment and support, from the community in which they operate in. And increasingly, there's a horse show component to that business. And this would also allow not only for these businesses to prosper and to endure here very harsh economic conditions, operating only, sometimes 3 or 4 months out of the year, but also be proper neighbors in their communities. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Scott Middleton?
Thank you, folks. As you probably know, I'm one of the attorneys that represents the Two Trees HOA, which is the community the residential community that surrounds the horse farm, and is part of the subdivision that was created back in around 2010 or 12. I want to take this opportunity to update the board with respect to the Supreme Court litigation that we commenced on behalf of the HOA and an adjoining LLC as well. And with respect to that litigation, the Supreme Court granted a preliminary injunction, and just yesterday, the attorneys for the farm filed an order to show cause in Brooklyn at the appellate division, and seeking a stay basically in the enforcement of the preliminary injunction. The court did not permit that. All of the immediate relief that was sought was stricken from the order to show cause, and we have until May 8th to file our opposition papers. So right now there's a preliminary injunction that's in place. the court below, the Supreme Court found that the preliminary injunction was based on proof that Hayground's activities on the property are violative of plaintiff's property rights, plaintiffs being the HOA, and of several restrictions on the use and development of Hayground's parcel. As provided in our written submission today, the property restrictions that were violated included the final resolution and of approval for the subdivision, the declaration of covenants and restrictions regarding the SWIP, the declaration of covenants and restrictions dated April 20th, 2013, conservation and open space easement dated April 20th, 2013, and the drainage easement for certain portions of Lot 18. At this point, based upon the Supreme Court's preliminary injunction, I would ask that this board stay these proceedings until there's a final determination, either from the appellate division or from the Supreme Court with respect to the permanent injunction, which we've applied for. Because I think the injunction prevents the horse farm from making any further construction or improvements to it. So it puts, I think, the town, who has been very helpful in this so far with respect to the amount of violations they've issued that are pending in justice court. I think it might put the town in a position that the town might not want to be in with respect to any decisions from this board. But that's up to you folks and your counsel. I'm just putting that out there. You know, the homeowners that surround this horse farm, since they were constructed, have really lived in harmony with the farm. They don't have any objection to the farm being there. They purchased their properties and built their homes knowing that the farm was there, and it's a rather bucolic setting. What's happened, though, what's changed since the approvals and the original construction of the homes surrounding it is the owner. And since the owner has changed, the operation of the farm has changed as well. There's constant traffic over recharge areas and drainage easements that strictly is prohibited. That goes on a constant basis throughout the day, every day. The last hearing, I heard a lot spoken about on behalf of the farm with respect to the safety of the horses and the riders. If you take a look at the amount of violations that were issued by the code enforcement and the fire marshal, especially the fire marshal violations, I think the issue with respect to safety is somewhat disingenuous. If you just look at the number of fire code violations, including not having smoke alarms in certain buildings where people were residing, etc., it seems to me that safety really is not a priority. Based upon our review of the proposed site plan, the expansion of the rings will be encroaching on, and in some instances, on top of these recharge areas and the drainage easements. So you folks can take a look at the proposed site plan and the overlay on top of those areas that are not supposed to be disturbed. Over the past few years, the present owner has continually disregarded what exists here. The covenants, the restrictions, the easements, the town code, what this board put in place and took so much time over a long period of time when this subdivision was created and approved. They've disregarded all of that. It's not the way to go about things. It's not the way to make friends with the neighbors that are there. And these things never happened under the prior ownership. The photographs that were previously brought in, I think, by Ms. Farrell, and they're here tonight, are also attached to the submission that I've handed in. With respect to that, you'll see, once again, the vastness of what went on this property. Digging up easements, drainage easements, changing the drainage. There's water that now pools and collects there on the recharge areas. Things that weren't supposed to happen have all happened without the permission and without the approvals of the town or this board. we would simply ask that you folks look back, and I know a few of the members here, including the chair, were part of the planning board when this subdivision was originally approved. Take a look back to what was approved with respect to those easements, the covenants, the restrictions, the resolution of approval, which within it there are other restrictions that you folks and departments and agencies within this town, including the town attorney's office, took a great deal of time and care in preparing. And all of those things were part and parcel of my client's decisions to buy next to a horse farm that had certain restrictions with respect to the use, operation, and the overall size of the farm itself. That was one of the decisions that my clients took into account when they decided to buy there and build their homes there. Again, they're not anti-equestrian, they're not anti-horse farm. They bought knowing the horse farm was there, and they bought knowing that it was an active horse farm. But what is being sought to be changed here would vastly expand that use and impact their quiet enjoyment of their properties and their property values. Thank you very much.
Thank you. David Kratz?
I am David Kratz. Thank you for taking the time to hear us. I started a horse business with my partner Heidi Earl, who was here about 20 years ago. We started it with just my 3 horses and a pony, and we've grown it consistently over 20 years. And it's been an incredible experience and a big part of a wonderful, vibrant community. And for the last 14 years, we've been housed at Two Trees. We rented one of the big barns there and operated out of that barn. For the last 8 years of that, we managed the property, the entire property, for David Willentis, who owned Two Trees. And that, again, was a really wonderful experience, and we had a great time. During that time, all the houses were built, and the homeowners came in, and everything went really smoothly. I knew a lot of them, and we enjoyed them, and it was a pretty happy situation. I feel like there's 2 separate issues here. I feel like one was the prospect of the horse show, and that alarmed everybody, and I understand that. You know, the homeowners didn't want this big thing happening, and I don't think that the proper communications or preparations were made for that, and that caused a big misunderstanding. So my current understanding of that is that now it has become punitive in response. So my understanding is that the current owners, who we also get along really well with and enjoy, and it again is a pretty happy community, backed off that horse show completely. They're not planning on doing it. There's no plans for that. But even though they have done that, they have been under a stop work order that has last summer stopped us from maintaining the rings, stopped us from maintaining the property, stopped us from having adequate facilities, which impacted our business also. And the way Two Trees works is it is a group of trainers operating small businesses that serve the community. And it's impacted all of us. So that created unsafe conditions. We had horses that got lame, people who got injured, and all because what feels like a punitive thing against the owners because they wanted to do this horse show. You can debate the merits of the horse show or not, but as far as I know, it's off the table. So I feel like, I get why people were upset, but I feel like if they don't allow, and by the way, most of the homeowners live around this gorgeous field that is perfectly maintained, rarely, if ever, used except for polo matches on the weekend. And it's serene, quiet, and idyllic. It's an incredible amenity for those homeowners and costs them nothing. You know, it's an ag reserve. It could be a cattle farm. It could be a pig farm. It could be a chicken farm, you know. Instead, it's this incredibly beautiful place that enhances their property values and their experience of the place. So I look at this and I just say, why? You know, our business is being impacted. A lot of businesses like ours, like many businesses in this area, also depend on what they can make during the summer, and they survive the best they can during the winter. So without having the ability to have this number of horses, especially in the summertime, I don't know if we make it. And that puts a lot of people out of work. And it also deprives the entire community of what I think is, you know, a beautiful thing right in the middle of Bridgehampton, all this open space, and all the sort of, you know, communal participation that comes from this activity that, you know, brings children, animals, adults, families, everybody together. So I really hope this can be resolved and resolved quickly. It's put a big damper on our business. And as I said, you know, a lot of people depend on this. And I think the other alternative is a long, slow decline for the facility, which isn't good for the town. It isn't good for the people who work there, and it's not good for the homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Romaine Marteau.
Good evening. My name is Roman Marteau. I am the managing member of Hayground Road Development, the owner and operator of Two Trees Farm. My wife, Brian Goutal Marteau, and I are both lifelong horse professionals. Brian is probably one of the best riders in the world, the best in my non-biased opinion. We start with our breeding operation that produces top sport horses. We then develop young horses with many years of hard work. We buy and sell horses. We also train students from a young age to the top of the sport, while Brian competes internationally at the highest level. This is not a hobby. This is a passion. This is our profession, our livelihood. This is our life's work. I'm here tonight to respectfully ask for your approval of our application, an application rooted in fairness and safety. When we purchased this property, we inherited many issues and violations we were unaware of. Over the past years, we've accomplished a lot. We responded to every violation, contrary to some people what they're saying. We've cured fire code issues. We've removed RVs that were there for maybe 20 years before we bought the property. Some containers as well, and so much more. We want to work with the town and neighboring properties to address community concerns while maintaining a professionally operated first-class horse farm and use a celebrated as part of the East End's rural character. We are not asking for anything extravagant or speculative. We are asking to repair the location of a sand ring that was started in good faith, to add 2 new rings for the safe riding surfaces of our horses, to improve our manure storage so it doesn't leak in the ground, and to increase our horse count from 89 to 107, which is well within what the town code allows for our 63-acre agricultural parcel. These changes are not about special events. They are about our farm's daily operation, about keeping riders from falling on uneven ground, about preventing a horse from stepping into a hole and breaking a leg, about making sure our fencing is strong, our layout clean, and our facilities fully compliant. At the same time, some of the same neighbors who are objecting here have not only sued us, they've also sued the town, claiming failure to enforce its code. But the truth is, the town has been actively engaged. We've worked hand in hand with the town department to resolve every single violation they identified, some of which dated back to the prior owners. Whether by curing the issues or paying fines through the justice court, we are doing the work. We are following the process. We've brought the property into full compliance as quickly and responsibly as we can. Two Trees has been an active horse farm and polo facility for over 30 years. Every homeowner here knew they were buying a home next to a farm. It was clearly disclosed in their title documents. Farming, not just in spirit, but by law, is a protected use in New York State. We do our best to operate in a fashion that is respectful to neighbors, without impairing our ability to maintain a successful equestrian facility. When we purchased the farm, there were well over 100 horses stabled and riding there, far more than 89 listed in the approval. At no point did we hear a single complaint. Not one neighbor objected to the traffic or intensity of use back then. The opposition only started when we considered hosting a horse show. Any activity that expressly permitted under the town code and has been part of this farm's identity for decades. Not to mention that our first action in this quest was to seek not just neighbor participation, but also look to ease any concern they may have. I also want to make one more point for the record. What's really at issue here is not centerings or fencing or additional horses. It's an attempt to leverage zoning and litigation to block activities that some neighbors simply don't want, even though the law allows them. In many areas, this type of modest site improvements would not even be subject to local regulation, as they are protected by the state's right to farm. And in doing so, they are not just hurting me and my business. They are hurting the local riding instructors, the small equestrian businesses that operate at the farm and are here tonight. People who teach children how to ride, who give lessons to local residents. They hurt the people who rely on this farm to earn a living. These aren't large corporate entities. They are local horsemen and women trying to survive in the town where farms are vanishing. Stalling improvements and creating legal uncertainty puts their livelihood in jeopardy. This planning board is the right place for these questions to be addressed. And we're here in good faith, working with your engineers and staff, asking for the opportunities to bring the farm into full compliance and make it safer for everyone involved, especially the animals and people who depend on it every day. Running a horse farm is not an easy endeavor. We struggle with labor shortage, staff housing, and increasing operation costs. We seek to maintain a safe and viable operation that everyone can be proud of, including our neighbors. But we need your help by allowing these modest changes. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. I'm not quite sure I can decipher this handwriting. Joyce or Jaffe?
Topping.
I don't know if it's topping.
Jagger.
Okay. Jagger. Hi.
How are you?
Good.
My name's Jagger Topping. Not well written, but hopefully well spoken.
I just read it.
My family is an old family here, and I've grown up in the horse business. My father grew up farming in Sagaponack, and the horses gave my parents and myself a bit of flexibility to stay on the farm here. So maybe what I bring to the conversation is a little bit more nostalgic, but I think it's valid in that what Roman is asking to do is simply to modify his property to meet the current climate of agriculture and horse farming. And that's what we've all done, whether it's a crop farm or like my parents transitioning into an equestrian facility and then myself growing up in it. here on the East End, we are truly, truly blessed with environment. The land we work on, it works for the horses just like it works for a crop, and also the availability to a marketplace. It's a nice place to train horses because horses find the money and the money's here, and we can do that job. We have ample funding to do the job that we're trying to do, which I think plays with all of agriculture at large. We're not going to grow a crop if we have nowhere to sell it. So again, for my family, the horses have given us a flexibility to stay on the land and to continue and in fact expand to some degree. And I think that that's what Roman's asking for. He's modifying his operation so that he can continue forward successfully. The things that I really like about our horse farm community out here is I think that, to me anyway, they do solve some of these things of stewardship. Like, we are good stewards of the land. We keep it open. We treat it fairly. We use it to make a living, and we ask you guys to keep us in compliance when it's necessary. I don't try to operate my farm in a manner that's outside of my easement, outside of my restrictions, outside of my special exception use permit. It's important to me to be successful and to be a good steward of those things. And if we read Ag and Markets, it seems that we're Roman and Two Trees and hopefully Swan Creek, we're in compliance. If we read the easements, my understanding is they are open for equestrian use. I think the small increase of horses, to my reading and my knowledge, appears to be well within the realm of the acreage they have. So I openly support that. One curious thing that I was talking to a friend about today, Carwytham had 180 head of milking cattle in that same barnyard. So with a lot of these farms, they're repurposed. I think it's a beautiful use of it. I support it. It's given my family a lot of ability to stay here. And on a super duper nostalgic side, and then I will leave you guys alone, I grew up hearing about my grandfather's team of horses, Kit and Billy, and they, as far as, and I was talking to my dad today, they were present at least within 10 years of my parents transitioning to a commercial equestrian use. So I get to brag that my family never lost their horses. So I strongly believe the horse has a place on the land out here, and I strongly believe we should give Roman the flexibility to keep his farm successful. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Lori Danielson?
Nice meeting everyone. It's Larry.
Larry.
Well, Lawrence. But there's only two people that call me Lawrence, my mother and my sister. And it's usually I've done something wrong. We live at 22 Two Trees, and we are one of the original homeowners. And I'd just like to set some context. Me and my family have coming out to Southampton now for more than 50 years. This is not an area that we don't know well. We've been a homeowner since about 2007. We reached a point in our lives where we were able to buy something here. We're very fortunate, and we are very thankful for that. In fact, my father over the years did a lot of work with the town of Southampton. And over that time, I've come to really respect the work that each of you do and what the town does for all of us. And that is enforces the laws, the covenants and restrictions that we all signed up for. We did our due diligence when we bought the property. I can't tell you how many conversations that I had with David Walentis before we bought the property, because we were concerned. You know, when David, David's not a young man. And we always asked David, what's going to happen when you're not around? And he said, look, you're protected by what's in the covenants and restrictions. We had, our local attorney take a look at things. Steve is no longer, I think he's retired, but he looked at everything. And what we decided to do was buy a beautiful piece of property that we knew would be serene. In fact, the property, as I call it, is going to be my legacy. And I think it's important that you understand what that means. It means a lot to me. I just retired, and I'm thinking a lot about legacy. And I think a lot about what will be handed down to the next generation. And what I want to hand them down is what we purchased and what we believe to be the case. And what we also believe the case is that there's a lot of honesty and respect that we have for what's in front of us. I want to also, there's a reality that I probably should point out. You have them in your packets. I haven't really gone through these, but I think the thing that I heard today that I think you should appreciate is that the remediation or the changes that are going on right now, those were caused by the current owner. When David owned the property, we didn't see piles of dirt or gravel or whatever it was. We didn't see tractor trailers coming in, carving up the land. We didn't see tractor trailers turning around on our property because they couldn't make the turn at the end of our road. If you look at the way the property is, there's it ends at a cul-de-sac or at the end, and there's no room to turn around a tractor trailer. And repeatedly, tractor trailers come in delivering equipment, materials, whatever it is. They turn around, they're driving all over our property. And then we have to remediate and correct it and make it look beautiful again. So I also want you to understand, I think it's important to know, we love where we live. We bought right in front of a horse farm. We bought what we see today. And we don't regret it. All I ask, is that we all live up to what we signed up for. I think that the disappointment would be making all these different changes. And most importantly, when I hear about the changes that would be suggested today, and maybe in the future, and that's different, I understand that's not what we're here to talk about. But I think what I'd like you to do is consider the actions that have taken to date. The changes that were made without, from what I understand, without having permission to do them, without having permission to carve up the land. In fact, we live on the Two Trees side, but I know on the Polo Court side, there's a whole road that was cut in so that the equipment can go back and forth to a barn area. And I don't even know if that barn area was allowed. So again, I just want to go to the point that I'm not asking for anything more than what we originally really wanted. We would love for the horse farm to prosper, but we also want to make sure that they follow the rules that we all signed up for. And I think that what you'll find is, I'm not going to speak for the other homeowners, but I will speak for my family. We do love it there, and we want it to continue, bless you, and we want it to continue it the way it's been. So with that being said, I just want you to please appreciate, take a look at actions speak louder than words. Please consider what's been done to date without permission. And if I'm incorrect, then I stand corrected. But my understanding is that a lot of the things that have been created, these 40-some-odd violations, when I hear things like, we'll wait for you to find out whether we've been in compliance, that isn't the way I live my life. I don't wait for the town to enforce a law. I follow the laws, and if they find that I didn't follow it, that's a different story. But I'm not really relying upon the town to keep guard. I really just want the town to enforce what we've all signed up for. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that context is helpful as well. And I invite all of you to please take a look at the property if you haven't been there. It is a beautiful place, and we want it to continue to do so. And if you want to have further conversations about what the homeowners think as well, this is a very rigid and formal environment. I welcome that conversation as well if you're open to it. Thank you for listening.
Great, thank you. Karen Hoag.
Good evening, board members. I've been asked to read a statement from Will and Carolyn Blodgett at 24 Two Trees Lane. A copy of the letter was submitted to the board. Chairperson LaFaro, Vice Chairperson Finnerty, and members of the board. Thank you for your dedication to the town of Southampton and for the opportunity to submit our statement for the record this evening. We regret that we cannot appear in person due to long-standing work-related commitments, but we feel strongly about the matters before you and appreciate the chance to be heard through this letter. We come to you as neighbors, residents, and concerned citizens who have watched the recent activities at Two Trees Farms with deep dismay. This is not just about the preservation of open space for the sanctity of zoning covenants, though both are critically important. This is about what kind of town Southampton is and will continue to be, a place where community matters, rules are respected, and precedent is upheld. We respectfully ask you to consider the following 9 points, each of which underscores why we believe the application must be denied or at a minimum thoroughly scrutinized. At least 17 neighboring homeowners made long-term investments based on the original subdivision approvals and associated covenants, restrictions, and easements, all thoughtfully crafted to allow residential and farm uses to coexist in harmony. The proposed expansion threatens the balance and the reasonable expectations of those homeowners. When Hayground Road Development LLC purchased the property in 2022, they assured neighbors they would keep the farm as is. Their actions have shown otherwise, from illegal grading to unauthorized event advertising, revealing a clear intention to develop the property far beyond what was ever envisioned or permitted. Unlike the Hampton Classic, which is held on properties specifically zoned for tourism and equipped with essential infrastructure, Two Trees is surrounded by residential homes and lacks the resources, staffing, and planning to support large-scale events. The attempt to recreate Wellington of the North here is both inappropriate and incompatible with the neighborhood and town planning. The site plan and its underlying approvals were designed to restrict density and development. Many restrictions have already been violated, from horse limits to prohibited vehicles access and open space protections. Approving this expansion would contradict both the letter and the spirit of those approvals. Make no mistake, this is not a minor improvement. It is a major operational expansion cloaked as routine enhancements. The current owners bought this property knowing full well its legal constraints. Their proposal disregards those boundaries entirely. If the board allows these covenants to be ignored or amended without any material change in circumstances, it renders future planning efforts meaningless. What incentive is left for anyone to respect land use restrictions? Over 40 code violations and multiple lawsuits surround this property. Hayground Development has shown a pattern of asking for forgiveness, not permission. To now reward that behavior would set an unacceptable precedent for all Southampton residents. With ongoing lawsuits addressing these issues, we believe it is premature and potentially improper for the board to consider amending the farm's covenants or restrictions until those matters are resolved. Many of the town's stop work orders and enforcement actions remain unresolved. Until full compliance is demonstrated, we urge the board to reject any consideration of this application. If the planning board nevertheless proceeds with its review, we respectfully request the following: that the original planning and environmental studies from 1994 and 2011 be revisited in full, and that any new review match the same rigor and scope to assess present-day impact. That all environmental damage, illegal modifications, and unapproved structures be fully remediated to comply with the existing site plan and covenants before any further application is considered. That a formal cooling off period of at least 5 years be imposed before any reapplication is permitted, sending a strong message that violations will not be legitimized retroactively. That the planning board explicitly codify the prohibition of special events on the site as intended in the 2011 site plan. This is not simply a matter of land use, it's a test of fairness, integrity, and accountability in governing and preserving our community. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I've reached the limit here of people who signed in. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Please.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me speak. My name is Scott Stackman. I'm current owner of 8 Two Trees. Just some background. I learned how to ride at Two Trees probably 30 years ago. And I have the utmost respect for the horseback riding industry, the horse industry. However, it is a business, and I do believe that this is more about expansion than safety. For us as a resident, we are very concerned about safety of the riders, of our children who are crossing these streets on a regular basis. I have 4 young children. There's a lot more traffic because of the horses, which we live with. That's okay. But it's a business decision to expand. And the reason they want to expand is to make money. And this is what it's coming down to. Because this is not about adhering to the current violations. To your point, they knew they were violating some of the codes here, and then they wanted to ask for forgiveness later. And they tried to meet with each individual owner to try and get us to warm up to the situation, of which we never will do. Every homeowner, there's a letter in your packet, every homeowner has signed our opposition to this taking place. And so I don't want to be redundant, but I can tell you that all of the homeowners feel the same way we do. We bought on a bucolic setting, that we love the horses. We want it to be a maintained and safe environment, but we do not see the reason for expansion and what that will lead to and what colors they have shown what the ultimate goal that they're trying to have. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please, in the back.
Hi. So I'm David Lewenda. I am the current resident of 12 Two Trees Lane, and I've been asked to speak and read a statement on behalf of my neighbor Liz Klein at number 4 Two Trees Lane. Good evening. I apologize for not being able to attend this hearing in person, as it's difficult to travel midweek when the kids are in school. We purchased our home in 2015 with the expectation that it would provide a peaceful escape for our family and extended families for years to come. My one concern, which was discussed with the real estate attorneys and brokers at the time, was determining if potential issues may arise if the horse farm were to ever be sold. This concern was assuaged upon review of the CNRs. If these are to be changed, it materially reduces the values of our homes and will certainly lead to a loss of confidence for all homeowners across the Hamptons. I truly appreciate your careful evaluation of this matter and hope you deny the proposed amendment, which would destroy our peaceful community. And I will just say on my behalf, again, I'm a neighbor at 12 Two Trees Lane. I echo Scott's sentiments earlier. You know, we bought with the promise of the farm and our homes all living in harmony with one another. And, you know, for me personally, I love living on the farm. We bought because of the farm, but the plans to expand the farm and the plans to hold special events already advertised is something that deeply concerns me and deeply concerns every one of the residents at Two Trees Farm.
Great. Thank you. Yes, please.
My name is Allison Skatpoff, and I had to write something out because I'd be shaking if I didn't. So,
You spell your last name?
S like Sam, K-A-P-O-F.
Thank you.
Okay. So Two Trees has been a staple in our community because it is one of the only barns left that offers public riding lessons. Most of the farms have been bought privately. And so Two Trees, like, because of the size, allows us to have like 5 different businesses that run out of the property. And we can have school horses that we can teach on, and then people learn how to ride, and then they get a horse and they continue their passion, right? And it's been a place where top riders have learned how to ride. I mean, I think Brian rode there as a kid, you know, and I know a lot of other people that have learned how to ride as kids and people that have come out to the Hamptons for a long time. So in order for them to be able to come out, like, they're not here all year round, they're only here in the summer. So I'm personally asking for for me, the temporary stalls in the tent and housing for the employees is what makes that possible. Like many pop-up stores and homes in the area, they sit empty for the rest of the year. The temporary stalls and housing is the only feasible way to make room for the summer clients. And we have many customers and clients that, like, I've taught since they were 3 years old, and they ride with us for 20 years, or they ride with us until they go to school, but each summer they come back, and because we have that space, they have a place to bring their horse. And without that space, there's really nowhere they can, I mean, they can go to another barn and ride with somebody else, you know, or but in this, it's the same issue. It's like there's so much limited space out here that they might not even be able to find a place somewhere else, especially if we find out in June that we can't have the tent. And then I specifically have a few different customers that are planning to come out for the summer, and I don't really know what to tell them. Like, we're not going to have room for you, and at this point, I don't know if anybody's going to have room for you. I wanted to speak tonight to give you perspective from a year-round member of the community. I moved out here in 2009. I've been working for Firefly Farm at Two Trees since 2009. And yes, it went from like these big, beautiful fields, and then David Valentis put in the one development, and then the other development. I think there's 17 homes there. And I think that's an example of how the community is building in the Hamptons. There's housing everywhere. And so the summer of 2010 was the first year that they allowed us to have, or that we put up a temporary tent, because people are coming in, we're getting new customers, like kids are wanting to ride. You know, I like develop these kids, and finally we get that, you know, they want to like do the thing, right? I know that doesn't sound great, but they want to do it, right? And having the tent allows us to cater to them. And so in 2010, that was the first year they had it done. And this was, I believe, 4 years before the covenant with the HOA was put into place. So the tent has been there every summer for a very, very long time. We've had, 89 horses on the property are allowed to be on the property. To my knowledge, I think it's been like over 100 for years, like over 100 horses for when I started. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's just the way it's been. Someone like myself and many other employees at the farm depend on the summer revenue to live here year-round. Because of the growing summer, community rent has more than doubled. So for an example, in 2012, I got an apartment for $1,200, one-bedroom apartment in Southampton. Now it's $4,000, lucky, right? $4,500. So I personally had to move west, and I'll spend more than 2 hours sitting in traffic. But I do that because Two Trees is where I make a living, you know, and I can't make a living if you know, the summer is when I make the revenue that I need to make it through the rest of the year, and bills are increasing. I mean, everything out here is getting more expensive. And so, and the other thing I wanted to mention was that, you know, because, you know, it takes 2 hours because the traffic is heavy, because this has happened to everybody. Like, nobody can afford everybody that lives here year round and works and kind of is the structure of the community has had to move west and sits in traffic for 2 hours to get here to accommodate people that are coming in for the summer. And so it's like, that's kind of how it works. But if we can't afford to live, if we can't afford to be there, if we can't make the money in the summer, then we can't be there at all. You know, it's like, if I don't have this job, I'm gonna move. I gotta move. You know, and a lot of people are. So, and I'm sure you guys have seen that. And so I just wanted to ask. Oh, and I also wanted to say that as far as expanding the property for financial reasons, yes. I mean, it's a business, right? we're all out here, like the locals are all out here trying to make money, not destroy the land, but, you know, accommodate all the people that are moving out here, that are building all the homes. You know, it's like we wouldn't do this if there wasn't the people to cater to. And with extra horses, it would be nice to have an extra ring, because it's like you're teaching a 3-year-old and then you have somebody that's jumping around 3-foot courses, 4-foot courses in the same ring, because we can't fix the footing, and or we don't have the space. So, but that's a separate issue. I'm here to ask if there's any way you would consider a compromise of some sort and allow Two Trees property to have extra horses via temporary stalls during the months of June, July, and August. And that's all I have. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. Is there someone else who'd like to speak? Please.
Hi. I didn't plan on speaking, but after hearing all of this, I thought it was maybe worth just saying something. I'm similar to, my name is Lauren Gridley. I run a gray horse farm out of Two Trees. We've been there since 2016. I'm pretty proud of how we've grown, and we cater a lot to children, to camps. I'm going to sort of back Allison up that we try to maintain and build a year-round community, but it is extremely important for us to cater to the seasonal. As with anything, the price of everything's gone up. It's become more and more difficult for local people or year-round people to maintain their horses. Just, everybody knows, she already said, everything has become much more expensive. So for us, the summer flux of people, it's really important for us. And, I go from when we started very small, it was last year, I think we had nearly 43 horses, but maybe 12 or more of them are from just summer people. And it's, I know it's not all about money, but we do develop young children and riders. And I don't know, I think it's important for the community. I mean, honestly, I've taught some of the neighboring people's children and given them a really nice experience. And I love Two Trees. I think it's so beautiful. And, just from a day-to-day operation, I personally, we don't clash with the neighbors. We if they're walking or whatever, we say hello, but there isn't a ton of cross friction. It's pretty peaceful. I know it seems like the horse show's been taken off the table. One thing I will say is the stop work order, it became, not being able to improve the existing areas, it did become very unsafe. My business suffered. It's very difficult to encourage people to stay on with us when we're not able to do even just regular maintenance that would make it safe for the animals to be ridden. There was some incidences which, like I said, I love horses. I don't want to see horses get hurt. I don't want to see people get hurt. I don't want to see I literally cannot handle people falling off. And, I just want to see the businesses succeed. It is our livelihood. But also it's a beautiful industry, and Two Trees is a beautiful place. And I don't think that, to speak to Allison's point, the tent has been there for a long time. From the outside looking in, I don't think you could tell today if we have X amount of horses or if there's 20 more. It's a gigantic place. And a lot of it's to serve for Allison's pony camp or my pony camp. We just can't handle having those horses in the Hamptons at all times. So we do bring in extra horses in the summer to accommodate the summer people. I think that's sort of what this whole place is created on, is I know I hold my breath until June 1st, just trying to pay the employees and keep everything moving so that we can make it till summer. And I do feel, if there isn't some type of, a compromise, summer is going to look a lot different for all of us at Two Trees. And, maybe these conversations have been going on for a while, but for me, it'd be and for all of us, it'd be a really big adjustment. I know I can speak for all of the businesses at Two Trees that we do, we put the pedal down in the summer, just like every restaurant and everything. The winters, it's quiet, and it's just really difficult to be there. And I want to be here for the community. We teach everyone that walks in the door, and Allison is correct. I think Firefly and myself is the only, maybe people have like one or two. I personally have like 20 school horses, and we try to cater to people that can't afford their own horse. It's becoming harder and harder to ride in the Hamptons if you don't have your own horse. And that's one significant thing about Two Trees is there is a handful of us that are still really trying to bring it into the public. And I know there's, even people in this room that have learned to ride there. And it's really the last years have changed the ability for businesses to stay open to the public in that capacity, that if you wanted to learn, you can come to us and learn, and then you can go, on with yourself and become a more advanced equestrian and purchase a horse or whatever. And I know that doesn't sound that important to different businesses, but for us, it's our livelihood. And like Allison said, do the thing. It's important for us as an industry to keep people, kids and adults coming and staying interested and supporting the classic. I don't know. The classic was it's like the whole thing, but you're seeing the more expensive it becomes, the less people can really get into it. Or when I started in 2016, we had tons of kids. Allison had a gigantic pony camp. It's just it's become different. And I think this would be really damaging to us at Two Trees not to have some type of a compromise if it was at all possible. So,
Thank you. There's someone else who'd like to speak to the application, please.
Hi, members of the board. I'm sorry for being late. Literally just got off a plane. I've been listening to this meeting sitting in traffic from JFK and becoming increasingly frustrated with what I'm hearing. My name is Dana Trotter. I'm a local. I've literally been riding at Two Trees for 35 years, aka Carwytham. So I've been around since when it was a cow farm. I'm also in real estate, and I've been doing that for 30 years out here. So I'm a true local, and I can assure you that this farm adds value to all those properties around it. Looking at those beautiful fields that are, as someone else mentioned, manicured to within an inch of their life, that polo field is used so rarely, and everybody gets to enjoy it. I fully agree with David Kratz and what he said in terms of there being two issues here. I fully agree with the neighbors and their frustration with the horse show, and that sort of just got sprung on them. So that's a completely separate matter. The farm needs to be maintained. My horse lives there, and it is not safe. He goes out there are only very few paddocks at the farm because some of them were taken out when there was a move to do this horse show, I guess. But we have a lot of horses using a very little space. And it makes absolutely no sense that we can't have more paddocks, that we can't have beautiful rings so that everyone's safe. There are a lot of beginners riding there. When I'm riding in the ring with 15 other horses, some of which are beginners, I've watched head-on collisions nearly happen because there's so many people using the same ring. Okay, it is unsafe. I ride there year-round, 7 days a week. I'm there. That farm needs to be maintained. I smell sewage when I go there because they can't fix that. They can't fix any of the issues that are at hand right now because there's this whole separate issue looming, right? As you've heard, many times tonight, these people do make a livelihood. It is also my lifeline. This is my passion. This is my joy. Going to that farm every morning is what keeps me going every day. Okay. And if I can't afford to own my horse because the rates go up because there's only so many barns out here, then I can't even enjoy what I've been doing my whole life, since I was a little girl out here. Okay. So it's very frustrating to hear this with the neighbors because they bought on that property knowing that there was a horse farm there. That's why they bought it, because it's beautiful, right? It's not decreasing their property value. What is happening as far as traffic that I'm hearing people talk about, I nearly fell off 2 weeks ago because somebody went racing down Two Trees Lane. That is not someone going to the barn. The people going to the barn pull right into the parking lot, and there are speed signs everywhere. I literally look at my speedometer every time I go into that barn, and I don't go faster than 5 miles an hour. It's not the people going to the barn that are making it unsafe. It's the people that fly through our barn to shortcut to Two Trees Lane, and they don't have a clue about horses. It's the people that are driving down Two Trees Lane. It's the work trucks down there. It's the landscapers. It's the contractors. I'm there every day. I can tell you that the traffic is not worse in the summer. It's all the work trucks going down to Two Trees Lane. I don't know what's really happening on Polo Court because it's pretty separate from where I am, so I can't really speak to the views or what's happening on Polo Court, but I can tell you on Two Trees Lane, the only thing that makes it unsafe is the people flying up and down that road going to those homes, okay? So I just hope you understand that it is two separate issues. I understand the neighbor's issue with the horse show. We need to be able to maintain that farm and make it safe and keep it safe for the horses and for the people. And I hope you consider letting them move forward with those safety concerns now, not in 6 months. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Kevin, is there anyone on Zoom?
Yes, there is. Putting them on now.
Good evening, Jordan Turkowitz, 22 Trees Lane. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. At the last meeting, Karen Hogue, who's there tonight, she read my very comprehensive letter about what's been going on at Two Trees. Now tonight, I want to spend a few minutes just focusing on how significant this matter is for every past and every future decision this planning board has made and will make going forward. As we've heard from some others, I don't think this is just about property rights. This is about how neighbors can and should treat one another. So, sometimes for something like this, the best way to communicate about it is to analogize. So, members of the board, I'd like you just for a moment to imagine that somebody buys your neighbor's house. And soon after that, you go away for a few weeks. But when you return, you find that this new neighbor has been really busy. The neighbor built an extension on their house that illegally goes right up to your property line. They also chopped down 100 trees in the wetlands backyard area that you share, and they've already excavated that area, and they even poured the concrete for the foundation for a pool house. So you go and look for a posted permit, but you don't see one. And that's because they decided not to apply for one. So you call code enforcement, they issue violations, but your neighbor keeps working anyway. Finally, after more damage and many pleading calls to code enforcement, a stop work order is issued. You feel relieved. But shockingly, they ignore it. They keep working. After more calls and dozens of violations, code enforcement finally gets them to stop. Now imagine for a moment that this new neighbor responds by filing a proposal to amend the town code so that everything they did and want to do would be okay. How about if they came to you, to this board, and they said they had a really good reason for doing this illegal work? You see, they bought the house as an investment property, and regardless of legality, they planned to expand that house so they could increase their rental income. So I would assume that this explanation wouldn't resonate with you. I don't think it would resonate with anybody, except maybe your neighbor. But nonetheless, they want this board to bail them out. And that's what happens when real estate speculators over-leverage. They want their community to bail them out. And this, not surprisingly, is exactly what we believe has happened to Two Trees. And actually, a lot of this tonight is confirmed by many of the people that I would say spoke on behalf of the farm. They just want to make more money. That's kind of what it's about. And that's fine, but the desire to make more money does not supersede the covenants, restrictions, and easements that's on the land here. Now, I think that I saw Hayground Road Development's principal is here tonight. He's right there. Ask him if he knew what he was doing was breaking code and law. He is a self-described real estate developer according to his LinkedIn profile, and he's clearly well advised by the multiple attorneys that he has with him. I'm confident that his advisors fully diligenced the whole situation at Two Trees before he closed. So it's really a rhetorical question, right? Of course he knew what he was doing, that he was doing something wrong. So the real question is, well, why did he do it if he knew it was wrong? And I think we know the answer to that as well, because he likely thought he was going to get away with it. And maybe he even felt that his goal of hosting...
It is a public hearing, Karen. It is a public hearing. He has a right to speak. He has a right to speak.
Thank you.
Please go on.
Thank you very much. And maybe he even felt like his goal of hosting a big equestrian event was more important than any code or law. So why is that relevant here? It's relevant because he got caught, and I believe that they are now trying to very, very hard to fool this board, trying to position this whole thing as an issue of support for the equestrian community. It's just a smokescreen to distract from the very clear covenants and restrictions of the subdivision and the intentions of this board in its comprehensive work to create the subdivision that my neighbors and I have been focusing on in our letters, our photos, our filings, and of course our litigation. Code enforcement sees through this diversion, and so does the Supreme Court with their recent preliminary injunction. So please, don't allow these very sophisticated real estate developers to pull the wool over your eyes. And beyond this matter, there is an opportunity to send the right message to everyone who tries to pull the same shenanigans on this community and this board. So we heard this previously. My suggestion, in addition to denying the application, is, in addition to restoring the land, is there should be a cooling off period. Someone said 5 years. I think it should be 10. And that's the signal to the community that if you decide to ignore codes and laws, there are going to be some real consequences. Now, the second thing that I want to discuss is the smokescreen itself. Hayground Road is not fourth generation horse farmers here trying to make ends meet in the face of financial hardships. I mentioned we have very sophisticated real estate developers. Personal experience, when they closed, the principal said to me and bragged that he had financed the acquisition with all debt, did not invest $1 into this. And also found out later cross-collateralized another property. Now, I know I'm not a real estate developer, but I know them. And this transaction is the type only a very aggressive speculator would do when they have a very high appetite for risk to maximize profit. So he also mentioned that they wanted to cut expenses after closing. And I believe, and this is very important, I believe one of those turned out to be the long-tenured farm manager. This is the person who ran the farm with no problems, no complaints, and through really tough times like the pandemic, the great financial crisis. Why is this relevant? It's because it seems the farm is no longer well managed. That's why the manure containers have been overflowing. That's why there were over a dozen code violations related to life safety systems. And now that's why. That's the reason why they're saying they need to expand operations to make it work. And I agree with someone else who said it's ironic that there's a claim to need to expand operations to make riding safe when there hasn't been priority placed on the maintenance of life safety systems on the existing operations. So finishing up here, the problem here seems to be that new ownership has far too much debt and aren't managing the operations very well. And now they want those self-inflicted issues from vanity and greed to become the community's problems. We should all rescue them from their irresponsible actions by changing the code, the covenants, the restrictions, maybe even the laws for their personal gain. And that doesn't seem right or fair in any way. Now, stat for the board, I don't know if you know this, but you probably have an idea. The subdivision and site plans now in place were discussed and reconciled via 202 planning board meetings. In addition to 39 meetings before the town board, the ZBA, and conservation. That is an enormous amount of time and attention. At least 16 neighbors and I bought homes, bought land, or decided to stay in the homes that we have already occupied based on this board's obviously very extremely comprehensive and thoughtful work and process recently, not long ago. Now, you don't see us filing proposals to shrink the cap on the number of horses. You don't see us trying to eliminate an existing riding ring. We are living with exactly what this board resolved for a very balanced coexistence. I don't see any legitimate rationale to make any changes here. And my appeal to you tonight is to see through the smoke screens and see this for what it really is. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, Kevin, on Zoom?
No one else.
Anyone else here? Yes, please.
Hi, Nika Strunk again. Again, I'm an attorney for the applicant, and I'm also representing the applicant in the Supreme Court litigation that was mentioned by Mr. Middleton. I don't have a copy of his submission. I don't know what photos he's demonstrated. I do know that at the last public hearing, I believe some of the photos that were demonstrated were not current photos. There were years in the past when David Walentis did a lot of ripping up of the land. So I don't know what's being demonstrated. As far as the preliminary injunction that was issued, that is something that I brought to the attention of your counsel. And I also emailed your the counsel for the town, because the town is a defendant in that litigation. And the town has an outside counsel, and his name is Scott Crepin. So my reading of the preliminary injunction is that it has no impact on this board's process. I copied Mr. Crepin on that communication because I thought that was appropriate, because he's the attorney for the town, and he agreed. He says, I have a copy of his email, which I have copies, I'll submit to you, but he said, Nika, solely with respect to the injunction not imposing any restrictions on the town or any of its agencies' ability to process and exercise discretion with respect to any applications that may be before it, that is my reading as well. I'm not aware of the HOA taking a contrary position. He copied Mr. Middleton. Mr. Middleton replied, Scott, my reading of the order is that it does not impact the town in any way. So I think we were all in agreement until I heard Mr. Middleton say that these proceedings should be stayed. There is no basis whatsoever to stay these proceedings. The preliminary injunction it's not directed at the town. It does not require the town to do anything or to stop doing anything. Now, I'll hand these in a moment, but there are a few other things I'd like to address. These fire safety violations, the property owner, Mr. Marteau, Kieran, have worked tremendously hard to address all of these issues that I understand were there before the property was even purchased. They have all been dismissed. This is an example, and I believe if you spoke to Sean Cambridge, who prosecutes these matters for the town, he would agree. The town, in fact, I know he agrees because I have emails from him that the property owner is working in good faith with the town. The process is working. The owner wants to be in full compliance. He wants to make this property fully compliant, and he is doing so. There are certain issues that have been unable to be dealt with because of the presence of the stop work order. The stop work order came at a moment when, and I can just refer to this on the over here, this area here that we're asking to restore had been partially, just very, very shallowly excavated to be getting ready for a sand ring, and piles of materials had been brought in. Now, nobody likes the way that looks. It's not a safe condition, but there is a stop work order, and we cannot we cannot remediate that, which is exactly what we're trying to do by coming to this board, until this board allows that to happen. So our hands have been tied. We would have liked to have dealt with that much more quickly as well, but it hasn't been possible. The additional 2 sand rings that are proposed are not on top of any drainage areas. They are not in any recharge areas. You just have to look at the map. They are not in those areas. So that's not accurate. There may be water pooling in the recharge areas. That's definitely possible, but there's a stop work order in effect, and nothing can be done until that's dealt with. This application has been reviewed by the town engineer. He is on board with what we are proposing. So this is something that is totally, completely right to happen. It's allowed. This is a conservation easement area. We are well aware of the restrictions on this property. There are many. It was a complex process when this application was approved back in 2011, 12, 13, and there are many pages of restrictions and covenants on record. This complies with all of them. A sound ring is totally an accessory use in a horse farm. It's like basic. And that is totally allowed in the conservation open space area. The other thing is, I've heard a lot tonight that that the property owner bought with notice of the restrictions. And yes, of course, the property bought with notice of the restrictions. These restrictions, for the purpose of this application, one of them that is important says in paragraph 17 of the subdivision covenants, the number of horses permitted pursuant to the currently effective site plan / special exception permit is 89. The declarant, its successors and assigns, reserves the right to apply to the planning board of the town of Southampton to amend the site plan special exception permit for any reason, including without limitation the condition that limits the number of horses permitted to 89. So I would submit that it is in fact the neighbors as well as us who knew that the number of horses could be increased. As I mentioned at the beginning, there is a formula under the town code. We meet that formula. There is plenty of open space on this farm for this number of horses. There's also, the neighbors are not perfect. There's a provision of this covenant that says fertilizer-dependent vegetation shall be limited to 15% of the area of each individual lot. I can tell you that there are many, many lots that do not limit their fertilizer-dependent vegetation to 15%. There are also extraordinary encroachments by 2 of these neighbors. This is a strip of land that the horse farm owns. The neighbor, Ms. Farrell, who lives here, has erected a fence that blocks it off. Now that's not helpful for safety. That's not helpful for a farm that's trying to operate. The owner of this lot, I don't know who it is, it's some LLC, has erected a fence that goes way outside of the boundaries of their property and encloses a major amount of the farm property. I have brought this to the attention of Mr. Middleton, and nothing has happened for many months after that. So, and we may have to take legal action in that respect as well. But so this is not a one-way street. Let me just see what else. And now, you know that we're not here for a horse farm, for a horse show permit. This board does not have jurisdiction over a horse show permit. We are not seeking a horse show permit. That's not what this is about. Nonetheless, I know that it was a major concern of many of the owners and of the neighbors, but the covenants, the same subdivision covenants that apply to us, apply to them. And they do state that a horse show can take place subject to the provisions of the town code that limit it to, it may be, I think, certain number of days. So they had notice of that as well. Now, that's not what we're doing. We're not doing a horse show. But that everyone was on notice of that possibility from the beginning. I think that is all. I'm more than happy to address any questions that the board may have. Otherwise, I'll step down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott Middleton. Just wanted to point out a few things. Number one, I think it's important for this board to know that Two Trees Homeowners Association and Polo Court LLC do not have any claims against the town. The town is named only as an interested party in the lawsuit. We don't have any direct claims. With respect to the preliminary injunction that was issued by the Supreme Court, it doesn't enjoin the town from anything, and that was my response to Mr. Kreppen. However, if you read the order, what it enjoins the defendant from doing may be impacted if this board permits certain things. That's my only point that I wanted to make clear to this board, and you can discuss that with your counsel. That was my only purpose. There are still, as far as I've been told, numerous fire code violations that are still pending. If they're working things out with the town in justice court and through the town prosecutor, it's moving very slowly. All the stop work orders were issued because of the work that you see in this May 2024 photo that was all done without permits. That was all brought upon themselves because they did things without permission. The horse show that was advertised last summer may have been what the impetus was for this, but once the town started looking into things, that's what resulted in the violations that exist, and that's what resulted in the stop work order. And if there are things that I said that don't have anything to do with this, fences certainly don't either, and we're still trying to work that out.
Thank you. Yes, please, you have to come up to the podium. And if you've spoken before, and I just ask you not to repeat what you've already said. It's already 7:30. It's been a long hearing. Please.
Roman Marzo, again,
Yes.
from Two Trees. So I agree that the town violations
Speak to us.
have been very slow, and I'm the first one to complain about it, that it's been very slow. We've tried to fix those issues for months, almost a year now, and I think, everybody involved in our team can testify to that. So it's not true that we are just dragging off it. We've tried so hard to make things move along. When we got violations from the town, I don't know if you know how it works, but basically you have somebody that comes to your property and they write violations. They give you the third bottom copy, and then they leave it to you like on a desk or something if you're not there, and I'm not there. And so after we got the copy and we're like, okay, what does it say here? It's impossible to read. You have a page with handwritten notes and you don't know. So what do? We go see the fire marshal or whatever office this is, and we say, hey guys, can you actually help us out? Because we can understand what this is. They say, no, sorry, we can't tell you. You have to find that at the arraignment, I think it's called. The court. We say, what? We can't know what we're being, what we are violating. How is that fair to us? We're trying to fix the issue. We're trying to be good neighbors. It's not true what I'm hearing tonight. Also, what's not true is this. We hired an engineer when we wanted to build those rings. I have built rings over before, and I know it. You need permits for that. So we hired a local engineer to do that. And that local engineer consulted with the town and told us, you guys are good to go. You don't need permits. It's ag land. You're not building a structure. It's sand over grass, which is what it is. We remove the top grass so we can put sand on it, so it's safer for horses. That's all this is. And now I'm like this cowboy coming in town and not respecting the laws. That's not true. That's just not true. We've tried to do the right thing from the beginning. I've spoken to the head of the HOA multiple times about what we were trying to do. The first time I spoke to Kristen Farrell, she was like, yeah, this is a great idea. I don't know if she said great idea. She said, this is within your rights. I'm in support. I'll make sure that the HOA works with you and that there's no issues. And so we were starting working together like that. I provided plans. And the more I provided things, the more I felt like the ground was shifting underneath me. And then suddenly we heard that, they wanted to sue us for that, to stop the horse show. It wasn't about ring, it wasn't about the number of horses. Multiple people testified before. The number of horses had been over 100 for years, way before they bought their properties. So we're not trying to increase. We're trying to basically say, okay, this was the situation. What can we do to make it legal now? Because that's the way it was before we bought it. I'm not over leveraged. I'm not this huge developer that some people trying to make me look like. We're trying to do the right things. What else do you want us to do? Like, literally, we've paid fines, we've gone to court, we've settled violations, we've removed tents, we've removed RVs. We've done everything, guys, everything. I'm happy to do more, to work more with you. But do you think by like keep suing us, that's the way it's going to work? Like really, that's like the best way to go about it? We're suffering. The horse people from the farm are suffering. Horses are getting hurt. That's not the way anybody wants to work. I don't want to be a bad neighbor and make everybody unhappy and ruin their summers. Of course I want it to be a beautiful place. It is a beautiful place. We want to make it better. So I don't know. I think it is just like too many untruths were told tonight. Just like stick to the facts. We've tried to do the right thing from the beginning. We haven't tried to come up with those things. I don't know. It's frustrating. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much for your clarification. Appreciate it.
Anything that hasn't been said before?
Yeah. Okay, and that'll be, and you'll be the last
There's also
speaker.
to be a
Thank
written
you.
comment period too, where you can
Yeah,
submit.
yeah.
Everybody
And
has
you can
spoken.
submit all your reports.
Just as I listen to this, David Kratz,
Yes.
Firefly. As I listen to this, I'm probably, other than Dana, maybe the longest tenant there and the person who's been associated with running that farm the longest. This whole thing about the ring and blah blah blah. You want to know what was next to that indoor ring forever? Forever? An enormous manure pile that was about 30 feet tall and as long as the entire building, which is, I don't know, 180 feet, something like that. Yeah, what do you prefer? We removed that, and that's number one. It's really important to know this kind of stuff because it's being positioned like we're profiteers or, that is bad that we're having business. I can guarantee you that every one of those owners in those $15 million houses have businesses and are making a lot of money, far in excess of what any of the people in the horse business are. And also, the sand rings that we're asking for are within the envelope of the barn buildings. It doesn't affect any of the neighbors' sight lines, traffic flow, walking ability, nothing. They've got like a 50-acre field that they're looking at. This is right tucked into the barn buildings. So I'm at a loss for this stuff. And I just hope that we do find a compromise. The horse show's over. It's a smokescreen to be talking about it now. And we're just trying to run these businesses.
Okay. Thank you for your clarification. So we encourage you to, if you've made testimony here, to please submit it to us in writing. Everything is read and lodged. And we're going to close the hearing tonight with a 30-day written comment period. So you have time to submit.
Move it.
Moved by Dennis, second by Tom, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, 6 in favor, 1 absent. Thank you very much for coming.
Motion to adjourn.
And motion to adjourn by Dennis, second by Tom, all in favor. Opposed, abstentions, 5 in favor, 6 in favor, 1 absent.
Are you off your meds?